Thank you so much for joining. We're going to be going over our Statement of Cash Collections, or SCC, training today. So the topics today, we're going to be going over Statement of Cash Collections from different deposit types: a gift or donation, income, or reimbursement. We're going to be going over what is needed for a donation packet, additional scenarios, and then deposit overview with references and links and resources, which are going to be found on the website just below this training. So what is an SCC used for? The purpose of this form is to act as a cover sheet for a bank deposit that are submitted to the BOC, Business Operations Center, for entry into the financial system. So each SCC does need to be separate. So each deposit type, whether it's gift, income, or reimbursement, must have its own SCC form. We cannot have an SCC form combining gift and income in the same one, or income and reimbursement on the same one. They each need to have their own form and own deposit. But multiple checks or payments going into the same account can be combined onto one SCC as long as it's the same deposit type. Again, multiple accounts for same type of deposit can be combined onto one SCC form as well. So if you have income going into two different accounts, that can be on one SCC form. Multiple gifts or donations can be combined onto one SCC unless they're going to different accounts. Then in that case, we would need a new SCC form for each account. And this is just optimal for tracking purposes. So here's an example of the SCC form and just going over kind of how to fill it out. You're going to put your unit or department info in the From section. You're going to select the deposit type, again, just one per form. The SCC number is going to be using the new SCC Naming Convention, which we will go over in more detail. The dates filled out are going to be the dates of collection and the dates the SCC was prepared. We can include the receipt number if applicable for handwritten receipts. And then we do need to select a value for every single box in the chart section. So the entity, fund, financial department, natural account, purpose, program, project, activity, and task all need to be filled out. We need a deposit description, sales tax if it was used, and the amount. So the SCC Naming Convention recently changed. Each location has a 4-letter acronym associated with that location. So the acronym will clearly identify the originating department for each deposit. And using that acronym ensures all departments can easily recognize the source of each deposit. So it's going to be the location code, then the year of deposit. So a 2-digit year located after the acronym. For example, 2025 would be 25, 2026 would be 26. We are currently in the fiscal year 2025-2026, so the one you would choose is 26. Then what'll be a hyphen after the year, and then the month of deposit in number format. So for example, here is all the numbers associated with the months. We're currently in November, so 11. And then it would be the sequential number. So the first statement of cash collections of the month would be 01. Second would be 02, with a leading 0 if needed. For example, the first transaction of the month would be 01, second would be 02, third would be 03, and the 11th transaction would be 11. So all SCC files must follow this format: location acronym, 2-digit year, dash, month in numeric form, and transaction number with a leading 0 if necessary. And please note the spacing. There is no spacing between the acronym and year, and no spacing between the month and transaction number. And we have an example here. For example, Alameda County, ALAM 260801. This would be their first deposit of August in the fiscal year 2025-2026. So the natural account selection on the form, for gifts and donations, this is always going to be 480000. For income, it's either going to be 440003 or 440009. 03 is for miscellaneous fees. So for example, 4-H enrollment fees, Master Gardener, insurance fees, camp, other enrollments. Other miscellaneous income, 09, is going to be for plant sales, pub sales, any other sales. For reimbursements, you're always going to select the one that says CTLR, which is the transaction listing report. So this is for reimbursements of supplies and materials. So for example, a personal expense on a P card, the vendor providing a refund, a 4-H council reimbursing the county for supplies and materials. The natural account needs to match the original expense shown on the TLR, so a copy must be included with the expense highlighted. And that, again, that's only for reimbursements. Here's an example of what one of those transaction listing reports will look like. Here is the chart string, and in the red box, we have the natural account, 536500. And on the SCC form, they've selected CTLR, C Transaction Listing Report. So when we receive this form at the BOC, we will say, okay, here's the transaction listing report. I see that natural account, and that is what we're going to enter on our journal line for depositing this income or this reimbursement. Another thing to note about sales tax, over on the right, the sales tax percentage used does need to be filled out, and it goes in the California sales tax payable section, and it must be reflected on that separate line. So you do need to provide the sales tax percentage used, and in the deposit description, enter the city and county where the sales tax was collected. For example, if it happened in Davis, it'd be Davis, Yolo for Yolo County. Then you can also record any shortages or overages in the same layout as the tax line for all applicable chart strings. So that's at the bottom of that SCC form. And just to note, UCANR is not exempt from paying state tax, so sales tax must be charged at the point of sale for all taxable sales. If not charged at the time of sale on taxable items, it must be self-assessed when submitting the SCC. The next thing to note is to verify and get signatures. So you need to verify that all the totals are accurate and match the deposit receipt provided by the bank at the time you take the deposit. You need to obtain signatures of the preparer and the director. If it's hand signing, please include a date with the signature. So we're going to be going over some specific types of checks. So contracts and grants checks, you'll need to attach a note with the award number to the check and give it to us here at the BOC. Then we will work with Andrea Davis to get it deposited with CGA, Contracts and Grants Accounting. Aggie Enterprise Accounts Receivable invoice checks, you'll need to attach a copy of the AR invoice and give it to the BOC, and then we will take it to the check to the cashier's office to be applied to the invoice. Next, we're going to be going over donation packets and what is needed for gifts or donations. So, of course, we do need the SCC, the Statement of Cash Collections form, a tender of gift form, an official acceptance letter, any backup paperwork from the donor, a copy of the check with a routing number redacted, and then, if applicable, a 700U form. That is only for donations to research or a specific PI, or a UDEV, and that's for donations that are $5,000 or more. So the acceptance letters must be on official UCANR letterhead with a unit or program information. The letter must state that the gift has been officially accepted in the first paragraph of the letter, and it can be an acceptance and a thank you letter all in one. We do need to have that IRS tax statement either in the letter or a footnote on the letter page. And the letter must be signed by the director. Unless the gift is over $20,000, then Greg Gibbs from development must sign that. And the signatures on all the forms must be an actual wet signature or an Adobe signature with a date and time stamp. And development actually has a template available for everyone to use for an acceptance letter. So if you do need a copy of that, please just reach out to your BOC team and we can get that sent to you. So gift processing reminders, the receipt date is the initial date the check comes into the possession of UC/A&R, whether it's accepted by an advisor or office staff. And this date is when the asset was legally transferred from the donor to the UC Regents or A&R. For the year-end checks, the receipt date can be the date of the check. The acceptance date, as noted in the body of the acceptance letter. These dates are critical due to tax implications and UC/A&R policy and UC Regent policy. So do make note of these dates for gift processing. Here's an example of that acceptance letter template. In the first paragraph, we have the official acceptance. We've got the appropriate wet signature with a date, timestamp, and that tax statement is found in the footer of this letter. Again, if you need a copy of this to keep for your records and to just use each time, we can definitely send this to you. The next form is going to be the tender of gift form. This does need to be filled out in its entirety. And a PI signature is only needed if applicable. Otherwise, it can just have CD signature, director approval. So we do need you to fill out all of the donor information or representative information if applicable, the recipient, the amount, the dates, the chart of account, and just the purpose or description of the gift. We also need a 700U form, and that is required only if the donation is to a PI-specific research program. You'll need to verify the most recent form is being submitted, and you'll take a look at the date. It's at the bottom right of the page. The PI must use a wet or date or timestamp signature on the form, just the same as the tender of gift form and the acceptance letter. So anonymous donations just means that these donations are not publicly reported. So if a donor issues a check but wants to be anonymous, we do still need to fill out an acceptance letter. In the acceptance letter, the county should include the following language. We accept and thank you for the anonymous donation in the amount of XYZ. The only time an acceptance letter may be skipped is if the donor is actually unknown. So say a person donated cash, and we have no way to track that since they didn't submit a check for donation. Their name is not anywhere to be found. Another example of types of donations are in-kind donations. So these are gifts that are donations of goods and services that support the county. So we still do need an SCC, a receipt or proof of the value of what is being donated, an acceptance letter, and just a little fun picture to the right is an example of an in-kind donation that was received at Elkis Ranch, 3 sweet little donkeys, Midnight, Romeo, and Coco. So they were considered an in-kind donation, and we still had to submit all of the paperwork associated with any other gift for these donkeys. A note on sponsorships. So sponsorships are a gift, and what must be taken into consideration is what portion, if any, needs to be reported as income and what portion is the gift. So some examples would be if the sponsorship check included a table at an event, the value of the table needs to be determined. The table portion is an income and the balance is a gift. Your SCC document would need to have 2 lines, one for income and one for gift. The gift portion would need to have the gift paperwork included. So this is one example that could be 2 types of a deposit. So just a quick overview, which you can print out for what is required per deposit type. So all of the information for a gift donation, all of what's required for income, and what is required for reimbursements. We do have a link to these forms here. They can also be found on our website. And thank you so much for attending this training. Any questions that you have about SCCs can be directed to your BOC team. Please reach out. Thank you so much.